Doing, everybody? Hello. Welcome to the very first episode of Monster Territory. We used to be known as Fenway Faithful, but now we're with the Foul Territory Network. I am greatly honored to be a part of their network. I have loved everything those guys have done over there. Brzezinski, Kratz, Scott Braun. I mean, they've been having a great show over the last few years, and they've now started to expand the Foul Territory Network, and we decided, hey, let's have myself cover the Red Sox moving forward. Again, I'm very honored to do this, and we're going to have a lot of fun here. We got the season coming up rather quick. I mean, we're a couple of weeks away now from Pitchers and Catchers reporting. So just in case, you're wondering, what we're going to be doing here moving forward. During the season, we're going to be doing post-game shows every single game, unless I come down with some kind of a terrible illness or whatever. I will be here, and I'm excited to do it. And every game, we'll be here talking, breaking it down, giving my thoughts, everything else during the season as well. Trade deadline, hopefully the postseason is a thing this year, and that would be even more fun to do. I can't wait for that if that happens. But we're going to be doing a whole bunch of other things too, like mailbag questions. It's just going to be a good time. I'm excited for it, everybody. But everybody, enough of me rambling here. We got a lot to talk about here on the very first episode of Monster Territory. And I think we got to start this off with the one man we've all been waiting to see what he's going to do. And what are the Red Sox going to do? Honestly, when it comes to Mr. Alex Bregman, I think, we've talked about this at length, right? With Alex Bregman, we know the fit. We know how good this guy can be at Fenway Park. The right-handed bat has been amazing at Fenway Park in his career. I think it would be a seamless fit. Now, we'll get more into that as we kind of dive into more things here tonight. But we got a pretty big update when it comes to Alex Bregman and a possible return to the Houston Astros. Everyone, if you are live with me here on YouTube, just hit that like button for me. If you are new to the channel, just finding us for the first time, subscribe. We're trying to get to 3K by opening day. But another thing, another great part of being with the Foul Territory Network is this now will be available via audio, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, whether that's Spotify, Google, Stitcher, wherever it may be, you can listen to this in audio form now. So make sure you go over to Spotify, wherever it may be. Give us a 5-star review. That'll definitely help us out when it comes to the algorithm and people finding us for the first time. So here we go. Let's get to it here. Now, I'm going to start off with a little poll that I posted. Earlier today. Potential Red Sox lineup if Alex Bregman heads back to the Astros. Jarren Duran leading off. Rafael Devers batting second. Trevor Story batting third. Tristan Casas batting fourth. Yoshida in the 5-hole. Maybe Vaughn Grissom, maybe Christian Campbell, however that shakes out, batting 6th. Willie Abreu batting 7th. Wong in the 8th spot. And Rafaela at the 9th spot. I gave you 3 possible options. How are you feeling about this lineup? About 900 people have voted for this. 11% say it's a great lineup. 26% say not good. And by far, the winning choice at 63% say it's fine, but it still needs more. That's where I'm at. And I, as you can see here, based off of the results, that's what most people are thinking here. And Alex Bregman, this is the one guy most Red Sox fans have had their eye on as the guy that can come in right now and give this lineup the right-handed hitter that they need. However, we've gotten some reports over the last few days, and we actually just got a big trade a little earlier today. Ryan Presley heading to the Chicago Cubs. Looks like he's going to be their closer moving forward. Now, you might be asking, well, what does this have to do when it comes to Alex Bregman? Well, we have been getting some reports as of late from Bob Nightingale not too long ago saying that the Astros offer is still on the table. And, back at the time when they brought in Christian Walker, they traded away Kyle Tucker, they got Isak Paredes back in that deal. A lot of us were thinking, well, I mean, how does Alex Bregman really fit on the Astros anymore? It looked like the Astros had pretty much at least at the time, it was looking like, all right, Alex, thank you for everything you did here in Houston, but we're going to be moving on now. However, you saw how Bregman's market has unfolded over the last month or so since all of those moves the Astros made. And he's still out there, right? I mean, you just saw this last offseason where with the Scott Boras clients, Matt Chapman, Cody Bellinger, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery signing late into spring training. And it looks like that could end up happening here with Bregman unless something can happen here. But you're looking at the past, couple of weeks and nothing's been happening, right? The Detroit Tigers were involved. The Blue Jays were involved. Obviously, the Red Sox, they've been involved, going back to the winter meetings ever since Alex Cora, made his comments saying he sees, him as an elite middle infielder. And obviously, he's hit well at Fenway Park, right-handed bat. It makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox to go after him. You've seen the Cubs get involved a little bit, right? Interested in a short-term deal, but you're seeing these teams that have interest, and you're thinking, why is Alex Bregman still on the market? Well, when you take a look at the Detroit Tigers, right, that was a team that I thought, oh yeah, Bregman on the Tigers, I think that could make some sense. A.J. Hinch in Detroit, young team, could use a veteran guy like that. But there was a report a little while ago that the Tigers, they had a bit of a different opinion on his value, all right? You take a look at the Toronto Blue Jays. They've been aggressive for pretty much every free agent out there this offseason. However, looking like maybe Bregman, who knows what the answer is there, but my guess is he probably doesn't see Toronto as a destination. Now, knowing Toronto, right, they've been throwing money at people. I'm sure whatever offer they have on the table, it's probably a decent offer, but in the end, he's not a Toronto Blue Jay, so I don't see him going there. And then you take a look at the Red Sox. Well, we got a report going back to the winter meetings, right, when Alex Cora was talking about Bregman. There was a report of a possible divide in the front office, right, on kind of what these guys thought about Bregman, right? We were told Alex Cora, Sam Kennedy, they think very highly of him, while there's some other people in the front office that, aren't really too sold on the idea of Alex Bregman long term. So that was always something that came up. And then you're thinking, oh, man, are they actually going to do it? But, they still kept getting connected there, right? John Heyman, even though a lot of people think he's just a mouthpiece for Scott Boras, still connecting Bregman to Boston, right? Guys like John Morosi were going out there and saying that. A lot of the national media were saying Bregman to Boston could be a great fit. We even had Carlos Baerga last week say the Red Sox did have an offer on the table. And I know Carlos Baerga can be hit or miss, but he was even saying that, he could see the Red Sox and Bregman figuring out a deal in the next couple of days. Well, it looks like we got another miss from Carlos Baerga, and that obviously hasn't happened. And now, the Astros, they had their fan fest over this past weekend, and it looks like that door is still open for Alex Bregman to come back. When you connect all the dots, when you think, all these teams, interested, right? They would love to bring him in. But he's still not signed. So it doesn't seem like these teams are really willing to go the extra mile to sign him. But here are the Astros still just sitting there. Bob Nightingale saying they got their offer on the table still. And even Dana Brown talked about it this past weekend, saying that he has had some positive talks with Bregman's camp. Still considers the signing a long shot, though. But this was before the Ryan Pressly trade. Now, getting back to that, what does that have to do with Bregman? Well, Ryan Pressly was scheduled to make a decent chunk of change for this coming year, right around $14 million. The Astros are going to be covering $5.5 million of that. So the Cubs, they're going to be paying, I believe, $8.5 million. So that's, a decent amount of salary relief, right? Maybe they could work in some deferrals to kind of ease the Astros payroll for right now. And in the end, I'm starting to wonder here if the Astros where at one point it looked like Bregman was going to go back until they couldn't figure out a contract. Even after all of the moves they've made, at this point, I'm starting to think, how does he not go back to Houston at this point? Now, you might be thinking, well, what do you do with the infield, right? You got Paredes at third. You got Christian Walker at first. Paredes isn't sliding over there. So what do you do? Well, we got a bit of an interesting report here. And Jose Altuve is open to maybe moving to the outfield, right? To go play some left field. He was even asked about it at the Fan Fest this past weekend, saying he'll do whatever it takes to get Bregman back in the fold. Jose Altuve out in left field sounds kind of ridiculous. We have seen guys on the Astros before make those position changes, right? You remember Craig Biggio, longtime second baseman. This was a guy that was going out there and playing some outfield. Jose Altuve, at the end of the day, this is a good leader of the organization. Jose Altuve saying, listen, if I got to go play left field, I'll go play some left field. If that means Alex Bregman comes back, plays third, and so be it. Isaac Paredes can move over to second, however they do it. Right, but at this point, if Altuve is willing to move to left field, which, that's a different conversation in itself, whether or not he would be an effective option in the outfield. Obviously, he's been known as one of the more undersized players in the game. Would a guy at his height be a good option out in left field? I don't know. That's a different conversation. But the fact that he's willing to do it and these other teams are not budging and they're not going the extra mile to bring him in, and they just cleared a little bit of payroll, I'm starting to think here, how does Bregman not go back to the Astros at this point? Listen, I think when you take a look at the Red Sox, I'm not going to get, more into how good of a fit I think it is. In the end, they're just not going the extra mile. The Tigers, they're not doing what they got to do to go land the big ticket. The Cubs, they only want a short-term deal. Doesn't want to go to the Blue Jays. If the Tigers and the Red Sox aren't going to make the push, then how does he not go back to the Astros at this point? All right? And, you could say what you will about the Red Sox where, coming into the offseason, saying some things, giving you hopes, right? Going out there and spending the big bucks, and that is something I do want to touch on. All right, I actually want to go back to the Sam Kennedy comments that he made in the beginning of the offseason. And I keep seeing people bringing this up, and that's why I do want to touch on this really quick. Says here, even if it takes us over the CBT, our priority is 90 to 95 wins and winning the American League East and winning the division for multiple years. Now, I'm not going to defend, Sam Kennedy and the Red Sox front office. The one little part here that I think people have maybe misconstrued a little bit, and I know people are still going to say they're the Red Sox, they should spend money. I am just going to point out, says here, even if it takes us over the CBT, if I think he carefully put that in there, right? In the end, he didn't come out here and say, "Oh yeah, we're going over the CBT. We're going to spend just all the money. We're going to land all the players." He didn't say that. Even if it takes us over the CBT. Where if you did bring in Bregman, maybe another reliever, yeah, you're over the CBT. But I don't think it was ever a guarantee that they were going to go just dropping tons of cash this offseason. And, when it comes to a long-term deal for Bregman, when you take a look at the advanced metrics with him, there is a little bit of pause, right? You take a look at the advanced metrics, the exit velo, bat speed, kind of middle of the road the last couple of years. Then you just wonder, okay, how's that contract going to do as he gets further into his 30s? You just wonder, right? So that's where I feel like I've seen a lot from people saying, yeah, if it's a 4-year deal, 5 years tops, I'm okay with it. But there's a lot of people out there that say, don't really want to go 6 years, definitely don't want to go 7. And I see some people even saying, no, let's just do a short-term deal, maybe with an opt-out. For me personally, I would be cool if it was a 5-year deal. I can understand where when you start adding on, maybe that 6th or 7th year, Yeah, you can sort of think, okay, yeah, that might be a little too much for him. I would be willing to go 5 years personally. That's just where I'm at. Because to me, I want to add talent. All right, I want to add a bat to this lineup. I want to get a good right-handed hitter like Bregman, who's had a ton of success at Fenway Park. I think it'd be amazing. Now, people are going to say, well, he's blocking Christian Campbell. He's blocking Vaughn Grissom. I'm in the camp where if you bring in Bregman, because he has the versatility, he can play, obviously plays third. He can play second. He can play shortstop in a pinch. I think because of that versatility, baseball always has this weird way of working itself out all the time, right? You take a look at the Astros. I mean, even with the addition of Isaac Paredes and Christian Walker, they are still finding a way to make it work. Even if it means Altuve goes out to left field. That's just the beauty of baseball. You figure it out, right? And that's where I'm kind of in that boat when it comes to, if he came to the Red Sox, right? Christian Campbell, he's played some outfield as well. He can move around in the infield. You just let it work out. But in the end, I don't think, I don't know, man. I was pretty hopeful about Bregman coming to Boston at one point. I'm thinking, all right, you know what? Maybe, they're kind of taking the JD Martinez approach. And who knows? I mean, maybe they wake up tomorrow and they think, you know what? Let's go make a big push. Let's go get this done, We'll see. I mean, in the end, never say never. But I'm starting to get the impression that he's probably just going to go back to Houston. Because if there is ever a time to make that push, it's now. But they're not doing it, And, you take a look back at some of the comments that Craig Breslow's made. You take a look back at, when he said, they want to be disciplined, right? They want to go out there. They're making the offers, right? They made a pretty good offer for Max Fried. In the end, the Yankees went the extra mile. They have made an offer for Alex Bregman, reportedly. And, and that was another thing I wanted to bring up, too. According to Alex Spear of the Boston Globe, saying that the Red Sox have been focusing on shorter-term offers with Bregman with an eye towards signing him to a deal of no more than 4 years in length. I would be willing to go a fifth-year option, but why would he when he already had a 6-year deal on the table from Houston? You know what I mean? And, you take a look at some of the other aspects too, right? State of Texas, it's tax-free. So he probably looks at that while thinking, okay, well, I got a longer deal with the Astros. Very familiar with the organization, homegrown talent, tax-free state. I mean, why take a shorter deal with the Red Sox at this point? You know what I mean? So that's where I'm just like, unless the Red Sox wake up with a completely, a change of heart, I just don't think it's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. I hate saying that. I would love for him to come to Boston, but I'm just starting to think it's not going to happen. Now, we do have some other options. We do have some other options out there. Let's say, Bregman to Boston, it's done. It's over. It's not going to happen, right? Well, I still think the Red Sox need to add something here. Now, going back to the poll. Go back to the poll, right? 63% saying the lineup is fine, but it still needs more. I agree with that. I think they need to add something, right? Because when you take a look at the current lineup, I mean, listen, Yoshida, I know all offseason people have kind of just been writing him off. And, you got to remember with Yoshida, this guy was hurt this past year. He was dealing with a shoulder injury. Who knows how he's going to be this coming year? I mean, let's see. What's the recovery going to be like with the shoulder? How is he going to be? You don't know. He didn't do well against left-handed pitching last year. He's really just a light-hitting DH at this point. I do wonder how he does this coming year, but it's still a question mark, right? Trevor Story, big question mark with the health. You just don't even know what you're going to get out of him. I would love for him to be healthy over a full season. I mean, I'm sure he would too, but you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I hate to even bring this up, but Jarren Duran, who was, absolute stud this past year, superstar, the projections these outlets are not being very kind to Jarren Duran. Are we going to get another season like that out of Duran? I don't know. Well, I hope so. I mean, I think the dude's amazing. I mean, what he did this past year, holy cow. I mean, the guy was legit one of the best players in Major League Baseball. But you don't know. What's he gonna be like? Can he even, get back to, even close to those numbers? Those numbers he put up were ridiculous. Can he get back to that? I mean, I still think he's gonna be very good. But, Casas, question mark. With the health. If he's healthy, we all know what this guy can do. I mean, the guy's a freaking monster with the bat, but he's had problems staying on the field. There's question marks all over this lineup, and even go further down. Vaughn Grissom, Christian Campbell. Vaughn Grissom, I mean, he was non-existent last year. He did hit well towards the end of the year, but how's the health going to be with him moving forward? Christian Campbell, I mean, I'm very high on Christian Campbell. He is now officially in the top 10, in the top 100 prospects on MLB Pipeline. And they've already come out and said that, hey, according to Alex Spear, they would be comfortable if he ends up winning a job out of spring training for opening day. I think he can. I mean, the guy was a monster last year. I mean, I would love to see if Christian Campbell can win a job out of spring training. You're seeing a lot of these guys now, go to Jackson Merrill over in San Diego. Won a job out of spring training, ended up having just a great year. The main competition for Paul Skeens when it came to Rookie of the Year. Jackson Chourio, highly touted prospect for the Brewers. Ended up having a very good year. So I think Christian Campbell can do the same thing, but at the end of the day, you have to give a little bit of pause there because obviously he's still very young. You would like the best case scenario would be to ease him in. However, you take a look at the other part of it too, where a lot of people out there think he has a great mentality. All right, probably they think he's probably more than capable of handling Major League Baseball in 2025. So, but again, it's a question mark. Wilyer Abreu showed a lot of good things this past year. But how's he going to be against left-handed pitching? Rafaela, are you going to see more of the bat? Right? Definitely, he's an exciting player, but you do want to see more out of him. So, to me, like, there's so many question marks. That's why you would like someone like Bregman, right? He's going to come in. He's going to give you a bit more stability in that lineup, which has a lot of question marks. If Bregman's not the answer, if he's not the answer, well, then who's the answer going to be? Well, I've got a list here of some people that I think, some players that I think could be impactful. Now, I will get to that super chat, Just Zach, in just a little bit. Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. I'll get to that at the end, my friend. But first guy I want to talk about here, Seiya Suzuki. Now, I'm going to write this one off, right? I've been seeing a lot of Red Sox fans out there saying, Seiya Suzuki, he'd be a great right-handed bat for the Red Sox. Well, here's the problem. I don't see the Cubs giving him up. I mean, yeah, very good year this past year. Hit 283, a 138 WRC plus, 21 homers. Yeah, he would be a great bat for the Red Sox, but I don't see the Cubs giving him up. And they already talked about this. Craig Counsell saying Seiya is going to DH a lot. That's what's going to happen. Kyle's going to play right field. Pete Crow Armstrong in center. Ian Happ out in left. We feel like we have another outfielder in Seiya if something happens to one of those guys. But we've talked to Seiya this week about that, and he understands that, and he's on board with that, and things happen during a season. So, sounds like that whatever that little rift was, remember when Joel Wolf, his agent, came out saying, bringing up a possible trade and how Seiya was not expecting to be a DH and he wanted to be playing in the outfield. Well, it looks like they've gotten that figured out. I don't see the Cubs moving him, to be honest. I just don't. If we're moving on to another option, maybe Taylor Ward. All right, Taylor Ward's been on the trade block what feels like a while now. Think of Taylor Ward, as a pretty solid everyday player. His bread and butter is against left-handed pitching. This guy mashes lefties, and he holds his own against righties, right? He's a guy that you can pencil in, but you're going to be more excited about him against that left-handed pitching. Now, a pretty solid year overall this past year. Had a 111 WRC plus with 25 home runs. Taylor Ward, the thing with Ward is it's not the player that I don't like. It's more of, and it's not even that I don't like this, but I'm just curious about the fit, right? Because you got Jarren Duran, you got Wilyer Abreu, you got Ceddanne Rafaela. Well, Taylor Ward is a guy, he is good enough against right-handed pitching to where he should be playing every day. He's not going to be a platoon bat. I just don't see that happening. Sure, he can maybe get some at-bats at the DH spot as well, but, Duran's going to be playing every day. Wilyer Abreu is going to be playing a good chunk. And if the only thing with Wilyer Abreu, again, getting back to, the fact that he hasn't been very good against left-handed pitching. Well, Taylor Ward, like I said, is not a platoon bat. So that's kind of an awkward sort of a fit right there. And then Ceddanne Rafaela, he's going to be the everyday center fielder. So there's not really, in my opinion, I just think the fit of Taylor Ward when it comes to the playing time, I don't know. Unless there was another move that was made, I don't know. I don't know if Taylor Ward ends up happening. I think that would be a very fun bat to add to the lineup. I think you're just going to have to do other things to make that a more seamless fit when it comes to the playing time. Getting on to Luis Robert. The White Sox, obviously we already made a trade with them this offseason for Garrett Crochet. He's been on the trade block for a while now. There's no reason for the White Sox to keep him. But I don't see the Red Sox going after him. Because, if you want to, think about the durability of Luis Robert, you're like, okay, yeah, he's missed a lot of time, but you know what he can do when he's healthy. The problem, again, it's the playing time. How much is he going to give you? What is the availability going to be like? To me, I think I would have rather have just brought back Tyler O'Neill instead of Luis Robert, because you just don't know what you're going to get with him. What kind of an injury is he going to have this coming year? Can he stay healthy? So I don't see the Red Sox really making a move for him. And I don't know if the White Sox are going to sell low on him at this point. I could see them hanging on to him until the deadline. Maybe they could find a taker this offseason, but again, you are going to be selling low. It could be maybe a scenario where they say, all right, let's see what we can get for him. But I think for the White Sox, maybe you're just better off hanging on to him at this point and see if he can reestablish his value over the first couple of months of the year. Now, if you're taking a look at some right-handed bats that maybe could be platoon bats, right? Like I said, with Taylor Ward, he's more of an everyday player. And I don't know if Taylor Ward right now fits. But if you added another platoon bat, which I'm not the biggest fan of, I think that's kind of a thing where I look at it. If you added a right-handed platoon bat, then I guess it's better than nothing. But, when you think about the fact that you already have Rob Refsnyder, you got Romy Gonzalez, who can kind of move around everywhere. I don't know, man. The idea of another right-handed bat off the bench, it just feels like overkill. When it just feels like you're just setting yourself up for a lot of possible problems late in games when you're, going with platoon options and teams are utilizing their bullpens. And it just feels like you might be getting yourself into some trouble. But if it's the only thing, at this point, if you're not willing to go the years for Bregman, then maybe you go with a platoon option, right? The one that we've heard the most is Randall Grichuk. This guy had a very good year this past year, 106 games overall, hit 291, a 348 on base, a 528 on the slugging, a 139 WRC plus. He's experienced in the American League East. I could see it, a guy that can, he'll get his at-bats in the outfield at designated hitter, but again, it's not the player that I don't like. It's just more because you already got Refsnyder. Grichuk, I'd say Grichuk gives you a bit more pop there, but I don't know. It's just another right-handed bat. If it ends up being Grichuk, it's not my favorite. Nothing against him. He had himself a great year, but it's more just feel like it's a bit of overkill. I'm not the biggest fan of adding another right-handed platoon bat. That's just me. If they did bring him in, though, okay. All right, let's roll, right? You know what I mean? It wouldn't be my favorite option. There are some other options, right? You got Mark Canha. The thing about Mark Canha is he can play outfield. He can also play some first base, right? DH, obviously. So there is some versatility with him that I do like. So maybe he could be an option there, a good veteran guy. There's also Ramon Laureano. He attached on with the Braves this past year. He did very well against left-handed pitching. He can move around all around in the outfield. So maybe Laureano could be an option. Maybe even someone like Connor Joe. Not amazing numbers this past year, but he has been pretty solid against left-handed pitching in the past. Has a decent amount of versatility. If you're going to ask me if the only thing I could pick was a right-handed platoon bat, then if I were to pick one of these guys, I'd probably go with Grichuk or Canna. I'd be fine with it, right? Grichuk obviously coming off the good year. But again, it would be underwhelming. I wouldn't be coming on here and doing cartwheels. I wouldn't be doing that, We'll see what ends up happening. However, moving on to the next option. Listen, if Bregman ends up going back to the Astros, I'm not going to be surprised if Nolan Arenado's name comes up again. His name was popping up not too long ago. Right now, when it comes to Arenado, he is basically waiting on Bregman. That market is waiting on Bregman's market to get done. And all these other teams, right? I think they're waiting for the same thing. If they're looking at Arenado, I think it makes a lot of sense. With Arenado, again, there is the debate, all right? What do you do with Rafi? All right. Arenado is clearly the better defender, right? Rafi, what do you do with him? Move him to first? Move him to DH? Well, I think a lot of people would say DH because if you move Rafi over to first, well, what do you do with Tristan Casas? Now, I would love to keep the bat of Casas. The only way I would be okay with trading Casas is if you got major pieces back at big areas of need, whether or not, that's the pitching in the organization, maybe add some catching. I think those are the only ways I could be okay with moving Casas. If you're getting back a great piece at a big position, right? Like we've heard Ivan Herrera get thrown around possibly. I'd be cool with that. If they got back, a stud starting pitcher, I'd be cool with that. But the problem again with that is that's another move in itself to make Arenado work. So, we have seen some little things out there. Could the Cardinals and the Red Sox maybe come up with some kind of a trade where Casas goes back to St. Louis and maybe you work out some kind of a blockbuster deal in that way? I know there's definitely a good amount of people out there that would not like that, right? There's a lot of people that want Tristan Casas to stay around. I would too. But if the front office feels like they need to improve the defense at third base, right? And that, if they weren't able to get Bregman on the terms that they wanted, well, with Arenado, these are the terms. If you're going back once again to this report from Alex Spear, they're only interested in Bregman on a short-term deal. Well, Arenado is basically on a short-term deal. He's got 3 years left on that contract. So that's where I also wonder if maybe the Red Sox, they're waiting to see if they can get Bregman. And if not, well, then you can just turn to Nolan Arenado on basically a 3-year deal, and whatever kind of a cash is involved there, I don't know. If they did turn to Arenado and they ended up getting a trade done, and then, let's say Rafi ends up moving to first, yeah, it would completely stink losing Casas. It would. I would be upset about losing that power bat. I guess it just comes down to, what do the Red Sox think? What does their front office think? Do they feel like Arenado, who I do think his bat would be better at Fenway Park? I do. I think he would end up being pretty productive. He would give you good defense. He was a 3-win player this past year, even with the down year at the plate. A 3-win player, that's a nice player to add, right? And I think that bat would be a bit more rejuvenated at Fenway Park. Then the question comes down to, is it worth losing a potential middle-of-the-order bat in Casas? Who knows what's been going on with that, right? His name just always seems to pop up. We don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure what the reasoning is. What else could be going on in the front office to why they're having these thoughts. I'm not sure what the thought process is. But again, kind of rounding up here, circling back, I wouldn't be surprised to see Arenado's name pop up. Right? Right-handed bat, 3 years left. Veteran guy for the clubhouse, if you want to look at it from that point of view as well. I do think there are some boxes that he can check off. It just comes down to, what do the Red Sox think? All right. I feel like I'm one of the few people that would see the positives in Arenado. The defense has just been terrible at third base over the last few years now. We talk about how they need a voice in the clubhouse. They need that veteran guy. Well, Arenado, this guy could end up easily being a Hall of Famer at some point. We'll see. But I think Arenado, I think his name will pop up if Bregman ends up going back to the Astros. But I do wonder if there is a long-term play with all of this. And that's Vlad Jr. Yeah, we'd have to wait, right? Another year, right? Until he hits free agency. That's a long time to wait. We really want to add someone now. I don't know if they do a trade. Depending on what happens with the extension with the Blue Jays. We haven't really heard anything yet lately on that front when it comes to an extension getting done. I don't know, the last, I think, thorough report that we got were that they were still pretty far apart. We'll see. If they don't end up coming to an agreement on an extension, not going to be surprised at all if he ends up getting to free agency, right? We've been hearing more about Pete Alonso lately, right? Is Pete Alonso going to end up with the Blue Jays? I'm not sure what's going on there. They brought in Anthony Santander. But to me, I think, especially if they bring in Alonso, I wonder if they feel like if they don't get an extension done, where, you know what, hey, they brought in Santander, they brought in Alonso, that's their fallback, So would they be more willing to let Vlad go at that point? Who knows? I think they would love to obviously keep them all around if that's the way it ended up unfolding. But Vlad, I do wonder if this is the long-term play for the Red Sox, if that's why they're not making a big push for Bregman on a long-term deal. Who knows what ends up happening with Arenado or another bat. But I keep thinking in the back of my head that if he ends up making it to free agency, then if Vlad ends up making it to free agency, that he could be the guy the Red Sox have their eye on. I don't know. He's got very strong connections with Pedro Martinez, David Ortiz. He would mash at Fenway Park. He'd be the closest thing to Manny Ramirez since Manny Ramirez just was Manny being Manny at Fenway Park. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. Of course, that's not going to be an option if he ends up signing an extension with Toronto. But I do wonder if that's something they have in the back of their head. In the end, if you were to ask me, I feel like they probably just end up with Randall Grichuk. Again, that's underwhelming. I hope that's not it. I hope it's someone, whatever. I know a lot of people out there will think, oh, Arenado, no, we don't want him, right? It would be fun to talk about. At the end of the day, I know that's not the most important thing, but it would be a head-turning headline to see Arenado getting traded to Boston. That would be fun content. That would be good discussion. But I think a lot of things have to happen for that to work. Who knows? There's still a lot of offseason left, ladies and gentlemen. We're not even in February yet. We still got a good, solid couple of weeks here. Let's see what ends up happening, right? But everyone, I am going to wrap it up there. Do appreciate you stopping by here tonight. Debut episode of Monster Territory with the Foul Territory Network. Again, honored to be with the Foul Territory Network. We're going to be having a lot of fun here. But we also did have a super chat come in from Just Zach, $5. The worst thing to happen to the Red Sox this offseason was being tied to Soto for as long as they were. Yeah, I agree to an extent because obviously, we came into the offseason thinking, all right, Teoscar Hernandez, Max Fried, okay, we're going to go get some solid players. But then the whole Juan Soto thing happened. You're thinking, what the heck is going on here? And it gave you high hopes, right? And then coming off of that, right, yeah, it got you excited. But you got to remember at the end of the day, the Juan Soto bank account is completely different. All right, what you were going to give that guy, it was completely different from everything else on the market. But I understand, right? The mentality of that, you're thinking, all right, Juan Soto, over $700 million. We're in the ballpark. We're at the table. and you're thinking, all right, let's go get it done with some other players. That's just not how it works in the end. But I understand though, right? Because you really started off hot with the whole Soto thing. So it is what it is at the end of the day. But everyone, I'm going to wrap it up right there. Again, thank you for coming out for the first episode of Monster Territory with the Foul Territory Network. I greatly appreciate everybody. If you can on the way out, hit that like button for us. Subscribe if you're new. And if you are listening to this via audio, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, whether that's Google, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever it may be, give us a 5-star. Would greatly appreciate that. But everyone, I'm going to wrap it up right there. Thanks for coming out tonight, and I'll talk to you next time.